On this edition of the program, why Joe Biden's biggest defender on this show is now calling for him to step aside. And everything else that goes along with Biden watch. Bill Sher joins the show. It's all coming up. Hello and welcome everybody to the Politics program for, I don't even know when we're going to say this is for. It's currently Monday, July 8th, 2024. The schedule is going to be weird for this show. Obviously, we are being dictated to by the news. And the news, friends, is a bustling. Here's what's happened. Joe Biden woke up this morning and chose violence. He has decided to go on offense with detractors within his own parties, and his attack has been two-pronged. The first, a letter that he sent to House representatives where, according to some estimates, half of the delegation believe that he should step aside. In it, he said he would do no such thing. And indeed, he was still the strongest choice to beat Donald Trump in November, something that he very much intends to do. And then there was something that I thought Joe Biden should have done last Monday. And that is an unscheduled call-in into Morning Joe. If you want to calm the Democratic waters, the first thing you need to do is make Joe Scarborough believe that he was wrong to call you to step aside. We don't know exactly whether that has happened, but we did hear from Joe Biden directly.
Well, look, Joe, let me say it this way. The reason I've been out on the road so much all over the country, and while Trump is riding around in his golf cart, filling out his golf cart before he even hits the ball. But anyway, he hadn't been anywhere in 10 days. I've been all over the country, number one. And I've gone over the country for several reasons. One, to make sure my instinct was right about the party still wanting me to be the nominee. And all the data shows that the average Democrat out there who voted, the 14 million of them that voted for me, still want me to be the nominee, number one. Number two, the idea that Donald Trump has gained in any substantial way, has his argument to why he should be president is anywhere convincing than it was 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. It's just not there. And we're just starting to focus on Trump.
As you just heard, it was feisty. Obviously, when you can't see him, it's going to ring a little bit differently. But that was part of the reason why I said this on Twitter, all right? Just so everybody knows. I said this on Twitter. You can check it out. It was June 28th. The day after the debate. I said this is how he survives it. If you're listening to me, Biden campaign, just give me a call directly. I have a Venmo. We can figure out a very reasonable rate. If Joe Biden is to survive this, he is going to do it the way I think that he did it today. And that is look every skeptical Democrat in the eye and say, I dare you. I'm not jumping. So if you want me off this ticket, you got to push me. And that means you got to put your name on it. You're not going to do it behind the scenes. You're not going to do it through conference leadership. You're not going to do it any other way but to put your entire reputation on dethroning a president from your own party. You willing to do it? If you're willing to do it, then bring it. If you're not, then you might need to shut the front door. Pack it up, pack it in, get out of here with any of this circular firing squad nonsense, because we all got to make sure that Donald Trump is the main enemy. Now, I wrote over the weekend on Substack, which you can find at freepoliticalnewsletter.com. Search Justin Robert Young on Substack. You'll find it. I predicted this. I said Joe Biden ain't going anywhere. And if Democrats desperately want to get him out, they need to vilify him on more than just political stuff, more than just polls, on other elements. Elements that would all belie the idea that Joe Biden is keeping secrets. He kept his health secret. What else is he keeping secret? I don't believe that the Democrats are actually going to do this. But I think what we have seen as of this morning is that Joe Biden isn't going anywhere without a fight. And now to talk to somebody that you, hardcore listeners of this show, are aware has been one of Joe Biden's biggest cheerleaders, Bill Sher. That was until the debate and the week that it took Joe Biden to react to that debate. Here's Bill. It is always a pleasure to have Bill Sher on the show, and he is very kind to spend his time talking with us about politics. But I want to, before we get into this conversation, just state that as an enjoyer of political writing, as I have been my entire life, I will say without a doubt, my favorite writing that I have read of Bill Sher's has been in this cycle, being an energetic defender of Joe Biden's candidacy. He has stated the exact same stuff that he has written in the Washington Monthly on this show. And so it is a brutal
intro.
It is a big moment when last week I read that Bill Sher is calling for Joe Biden to step aside. Welcome to the show, Bill Sher.
Thank you. I think.
No, it is. Look, I think it is a sign of where we are in this process and how fast the landscape of Joe Biden's reelection changed from the debate. So the floor is yours. How did you get from there to where you are now?
Now, I've written two pieces on this since the debate. One was right after that night, where I said, this was bad, but there's a path forward. You know, Reagan had a bad debate in '84.
Yep.
John Fetterman had a bad debate in his Senate race. Raised questions about their capabilities, but they got past it. I think in Biden's case, his debate was worse, and it seemingly validated the narrative of him not having his full faculties. He went into the debate behind in the first place, which is not good. But the way out of it is to get back out there and do unscripted events, town halls, interviews, press conferences, and do those ably. So the debate seems like a distant memory. If it's just a cold, then you would see that in the performances and people would be reassured. Then a week went by where not only did that not happen, he did very little in public. What he did do was mainly on teleprompter. Did a fundraiser where he blamed a foreign trip that happened well before the debate. Did a couple of radio interviews where the questions were given in advance. So
apparently, yeah, that's the other. There's a whole nother component to this about how much is leaking from inside the ship. But please go ahead. Yeah.
So just go into the fundraiser, just saying, well, I had a bad debate because I went on a foreign trip and it took a long time for me to recover and I needed more sleep. Like, this is the opposite of assuring. This is the opposite of reassuring. So just everything about it felt very haphazard and sloppy and amateurish, and just fundamentally not addressing the issue at hand. I mean, so even the interview he does with Stephanopoulos, which was the one big unscripted thing that he did, is better than in the debate, but there's still some meandering, there's still some garbled answering, and the main question of whether have you been checked out recently, he points to this February test that he got, physical that he got. And then this goes a bit beyond what I wrote in the Washington Monthly. This happened after. Because the piece that I wrote where I say he should withdraw happened before
the Stephanopoulos interview.
So maybe if you want, I can stop there and we can get into the Stephanopoulos part later if you wish.
No, please. I want all of what you have to say right now.
I mean, I put this on X over the weekend.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw this. He did an hour-long unscripted interview with Howard Stern in late April, 10 weeks ago. You can watch the whole thing. He sounds different.
Yeah.
His voice is stronger. The answers are coherent. They're not garbled or excessively meandering. I mean, I think there were some fact-check questions that came up, but Biden's been embellishing personal stories for a long time. Like,
yes.
I went into the debate. I think I said this. The other show that I do regularly is the DMZ with my friend Matt Lewis. I think I might have said with you too. I can't remember. Sometimes these shows blur in my mind.
Yep.
Like, Biden's always been a little weird. He's always been meandering. Always been kind of disjointed. Mix up a name, mix up a fact. Like that's Joe Biden was a
bake that in.
Exactly. Yeah. Self-proclaimed gaffe machine as vice president with Obama. There's baseline Biden. If he gives a baseline Biden performance of the debate, I'm fine with that. But what happened in the debate was below baseline and below what I saw with my own eyes 10 weeks ago with Howard Stern.
Yeah.
So your physical in February doesn't explain to me, did something happen between late April and now? And maybe something happened on that trip. Maybe that was one trip too many. It was a pretty grueling trip. Maybe he got some kind of virus that did some real damage. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. But now is a good time to have a doctor check you out and give a public assessment, because something seems to have happened recently, which I think cuts against this cover-up theory that the Trump and the Republicans want to push, that they've always known it was falling apart. They've been lying to us the whole time. I can't know, obviously, but it seems like something happened recently that doesn't comport to a larger cover-up theory.
Okay. Well, before we get to what is happening from the opposite side of the battle lines, let's talk about stuff that is happening inside. And that is, you are not alone in the wilderness calling for Joe Biden to step aside. Multiple editorial boards. You've had donors, specifically the LA donors, seem to be in total revolt. You have had multiple governors, even after a conversation with Joe Biden, seem to express skepticism, if not outright suggesting that he step aside. And as we speak right now at 11:20 Eastern time, we are in a staring contest amidst the Democratic Party, where Joe Biden has dared anybody to push him off the ledge because he is not going to jump. From your calculus, from where you are watching this, where are we in this conversation internally amongst Democrats on Joe Biden's viability as nominee?
Well, just what I can see from the outside. I can't know what's happening inside. We just heard Joe Biden this morning. We're talking Monday morning. Just did Morning Joe, where Joe Scarborough said get out and Mika said don't get out. He was on the phone, so you didn't see him. But 15 minutes, unscripted, pretty animated Joe Biden.
Very
clear. I think clearer than in the Stephanopoulos interview. But we have this notion from reporting and some of what he said himself that some days are better than others, does worse in the evening than in the morning. So even you get a halfway decent performance out of him now, it still doesn't fully address all the questions.
Yeah.
But to your question, he is digging in. He publicly more defiant. Had a letter to congressional Democrats that he's staying in, being very adamant about it. I mean, he was very pointed and very defensive in the Morning Joe interview. And so
daring people to declare and fight him at the convention and see what happens.
Right. So to take that at face value, it would suggest no one in the inner circle has had the come to Jesus conversation with him yet. And maybe, what I assume will force.
Well,
this issue.
according to his interview with Stephanopoulos,
Right,
Jesus would have to come to him.
That's what it would take. Yes. What I assume would force this issue is internal polling. That the people that he trusts say to him, look at these numbers since the debate. They're down, they're going down, and we don't know how they're going to come back.
Yeah.
I do not think he wants to end his career having been defeated by Donald Trump. And he has an alternative, which I think is a pretty good alternative, which is to not just withdraw, but to resign and make Kamala Harris the president, be the person who made the first woman president happen, and give her every possible opportunity and advantage to take Donald Trump on and create that clear contrast. But I don't think we're going to get there unless people close to him show him data saying that's really the only way out. And it may be that the polls don't collapse, but are just not great. And this is the point that I made in my article last week in the Washington Monthly. He went into the debate behind.
Down.
Not a lot. I think a very small deficit, a surmountable deficit. And I've argued with you that if this was any other incumbent, based on historical patterns, he would be winning. The economy is pointed in the correct direction for an incumbent to win. We do not have an example of an incumbent losing when GDP is growing, when unemployment is near record lows, when wages are beating inflation over the past year. I understand that we had an inflationary spike, but so did Ronald Reagan. Reagan had worse interest rates at this point than Joe Biden had right now, but he was able to argue that things were on the right track. That's how incumbents win. The debate to propose an early debate, which was Joe Biden's idea and the campaign's idea with sound reasoning, which was let's get past this age issue that is bogging us down, and so we can get back to the fundamentals of the race. So let's accelerate that part of the process with a June debate. And if you could not meet that moment, that raises the question, well, when is that moment going to happen now? So maybe the polling is not going to be you're 10 points behind, you're still 2 to 3 points behind. Explain to me how you get to be 1 point ahead, because that's where you need to be. If this debate wasn't it, what is it? No one can articulate that. And having intermittently good performances publicly is not going to probably cut it. Maybe, I mean, I can't be a clairvoyant. Maybe Trump is bad enough and maybe have his own episode at this point.
Never know.
People might organically come back to bite him. That's a hell of a dice roll when the strategy that you guys articulated failed so completely.
Let me go back to your thought process on this, because you did write that immediate reaction after the debate saying, hey, surmountable. This is something that's bad, but you got to recognize it's bad and you got to do triage and then you can move forward. You squandered an opportunity, but it didn't totally disable you. A week later, now you have it. So it sounds like it is the inaction. It is the lack of recognition that this was a building on fire that really alarmed you to the point that you are saying, maybe we need to move on. And this is, again, what I've liked about your writing this cycle is you always have the extra thing, which was not only that Kamala should be the president, but they should do it during the RNC.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to write something else about this probably for tomorrow in the Washington Monthly newsletter, but I'm happy to sketch it out for you here.
Please.
So, I mean, here's what I would do. I would literally have Joe Biden resign during the Republican convention. Kamala Harris is the president during the Republican convention. You obliterate that convention. That convention is no longer dominating the news.
We might disagree. I think that would be the greatest programming gift of the RNC. If you look at that, the smiles on the faces of Republican operatives, they'd be thrilled to put it on the big screen and hand out popcorn.
Well, sure, they would tee off on Kamala. Of course, they're going to do that. But it's not the usual 3 days of just nonstop pro-party propaganda.
Sure.
You're now competing for time. Kamala Harris makes her inaugural speech as president of the United States. That gets time. I mean, she could literally do it during the convention. And Trump would have to move his speech around hers. So do it maybe at 11 p.m. and not 9 p.m. So I understand the argument against Kamala. She has taken a lot of hits. She has not proven herself a vote getter with swing voters in swing areas. She has made rhetorical missteps at times. We know how the Republicans like to clip her laughs and make her sound like a caricature. They call her like cackling Kamala Harris or laughing Kamala Harris. I understand all that stuff.
Yeah.
But so she would go in with relatively low expectations, unlike a fresh face who would go in with probably unreasonably high expectations. And she would have all the trappings of the presidency around her. So you now have a period of time, you have a 3-month period where you can get comfortable with what a President Harris looks like, what a woman of color president looks like.
Yes. Okay. I understand it, but I'm going to stop you there because I think that was a very good, I encourage, again, follow Bill Sher. Please read his work because it is always on point. That was 5 days ago. We are in a situation now where Joe Biden does not seem to believe that he is down in this race. He specifically said he does not believe on Morning Joe that he has a problem with black voters. He specifically said that all of the elites that are here, like Bill Sher, that are telling him to step out, that they are wrong, that he has the political instinct, and he always has, and he is going to win this race. We also know from reporting over the last couple weeks that the circle is very much tightened. The people that most have his ear are in his family, and if we are to believe that there might still be hard feelings with Jill Biden and Kamala Harris stemming from the primary in 2020, it seems less likely that he is going to step off the stage and resign right now.
Well,
That
it's his call, not mine. So I can give you all the scenarios in the universe. If he doesn't believe it, it's not going to happen.
Yes.
I think the arguments that he is giving are not very compelling arguments. To say, essentially, my base hasn't abandoned me. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's not enough for you to win the presidency. You need to know that the swing's not going to abandon you.
Yes.
And you can't produce any data to suggest that when you had them in the first place, you came in behind last month. So show me how you get ahead. Base is not enough to do that. If a bunch of polls come down where he's beating Trump by 3 points, I'll shut the hell up. But I'm not expecting that right now. And again, I think we have a period last week where polling was probably a little tricky to do. It's a holiday week. Mm-hmm. So you have this one poll from Bloomberg that came out. They've been doing a lot of swing state polling, which has generally been kind of bad for Biden. But it showed him winning and it showed him improving overall in swing states.
Yes.
Leading in Wisconsin and Michigan.
Yes.
But still behind everywhere else. So you can
down 7, I believe. Down 7, I believe, in Pennsylvania. It was a very good.
Well, that's the thing. I mean,
it was a very good Michigan poll for him, and it was a very good Georgia poll actually, because it had him only down 1 in Georgia, where by aggregate he has been down by more than that. But it was a horrifying Pennsylvania poll, and that's the tipping state.
Right. So the whole thing didn't really add up. The state by state didn't add up. They weren't all going in one direction in that respect. And state polling in general, I mean, so one hand, whenever you quote a national poll, everyone says, well, if the national polls don't win elections, you got to win in the states. Yes, we all know that.
Yeah.
But state polling has been much more sporadic. And so you don't get the same granular sense of momentum shifts when you get the occasional poll here and there. And so you get one morsel of data and everyone goes berserk over it. But it's much easier for that one poll to be an outlier because you don't have 10 other polls happening at the same time to give you a sense of where the average is. We have more frequent national polling, and so we get a better sense of momentum shifts through that. I'm not saying everything's perfect. It's all in exact science. So I wouldn't overstate the value of any one particular state poll.
No.
And two, even in the best interpretation of this Bloomberg Morning Consult poll, Biden still loses.
Yes.
It's not enough to actually win. So we have no data to suggest that he is winning as of today, and no plan from what Biden's own argument is how he creates a win. His argument is, well, Trump had a bad debate too. I know that. I know Trump is horrible, but you don't have to convince me. You have to convince a swing voter who the focus is on you and not him because of how bad you performed. By
the way, also, this is as it's coming in. We are talking right now. Emerson for DemNextGen.com. Trump down 6 in Nevada, down 5 in Pennsylvania, down 5 in Georgia, down 4 in Arizona.
Is Trump down?
No, sorry, Trump. Sorry, Biden. Trump up.
Okay.
This is Biden down in every swing state. Okay. Down 2 in Wisconsin, down 1 in Michigan. So Wisconsin and Michigan within the margin of error. Almost all the other swing states outside of a margin of error lead right now for Donald Trump, which has been consistent with what we've seen in other polling.
Okay, so that's Emerson polling.
Emerson. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So I think if there is more of that, and I think if the Democrats' internal polling says that as well, I don't think Biden is totally out to lunch. I don't think he has got full-blown dementia. He said on Morning Joe today he still has good political instincts. I think he does. I think Biden has good political instincts. And I think if he sees more data like that, he is going to conclude that he does not want to end his political career in a humiliating defeat. That's how I think this ends.
You want to know what troubled me if I'm looking at it from a pro-Joe Biden standpoint? There were 2 answers that I thought were really bad in the Stephanopoulos one. The first was him saying that he has not watched the debate. Feel like that was
he didn't think he watched it,
which is even worse, by the way. Like when he can't remember whether or not he watched it, considering the problems.
And I don't want to be mean because like I might, if I didn't want to admit to something, maybe I would say something in a kind of a caveat way too. Loosely.
If you could say I watched clips or something, but again, he said he didn't. So that brings to a level of seriousness of do you understand why people are actually freaking out? And the second was. And he had to answer for this again on Morning Joe, when asked by George Stephanopoulos what he thought the reaction would be or how he would think about himself if he lost to Donald Trump, he said, well, if I gave it my all. And that kind of gets to the heart of, I think, his base problems that have cropped up during the debate, which is the rhetoric is so hot on both sides of this election, but specifically on the Democratic side, specifically on just the verbiage that the Biden campaign itself has put out. This is a vote for democracy. A vote against Joe Biden or staying home is a vote for totalitarianism. If you are not the guy to defend it, if you are not serious, if you are not on top of your game, then I think that there is a betrayal. And that's what I think we are seeing right now amongst Democrats is that are you serious right now? When you say, if I give it my best, then, it's going to be okay. That was a huge problem. I think that it's incumbent upon him to say. He tried to
clean it up on Morning Joe today.
He tried to clean it up, but it's like, look, no, this is my legacy. I'm putting my legacy. I'm putting 50 years of me being a politician. I am betting it all. I'm pushing in all my chips to save America. That's at least it gives you some propulsive element to this, and we've not really seen it. It's been very defensive.
Look, I want to be compassionate here because again, I don't believe that Biden was not up to the task a few months ago.
Yes,
it was reasonable to conclude in 2023 that an incumbent with a record that he compiled, and with the economic numbers pointing in the right direction, would be the best person positioned to maintain keep the presidency and keep it out of Donald Trump's hands. That was a rational conclusion to draw. I'm not saying it's the only conclusion you could draw, but I certainly get the argument and feel it wouldn't be an act of just selfishness to conclude that. Incumbents usually win. Unless things are super bad.
Those are, and anybody who listens to this show knows, I am my favorite thing is the boring zag when people want to look. I always say, if the economy is good, the incumbent wins. That was my argument for Trump in 2020 pre-COVID. That was my argument for Biden leading up to this, and we've kind of seen what I think has been a horrifying campaign. But please continue.
But if something has happened to him in the past month or so, I can only imagine how hard it must be to come to terms with that for any human being, let alone the president of the United States. So it's not something you're going to quickly just snap your fingers and say, oh, yeah, I guess I'm not up to the task anymore. That's a very hard thing to have to come to terms with. And I imagine it's going to have to take a lot of red flashing light data and people very close to him who he knows have his best interest at heart to tell this to him very delicately but forthrightly. And I can only assume that no one really thought they would have to do that before 2 weeks ago. That things weren't necessarily that bad. I mean, maybe they were more inkling. Like I was doing the DMZ show with Matt Lewis.
Yeah.
And with this fancy Riverside technology, you can drop the video clips in, while we talk. And I hadn't seen the footage of the Juneteenth event where people were dancing around him.
And he was frozen. Yeah.
He looks. I mean, not frozen, but not dancing, kind of slack-jawed. And my gut reaction was that, again, I know he's aging. But all these little things that people can point to, hey, he walks stiffly, he mumbles more, he mixes up a fact. I'm like, you know what? That's just like normal aging stuff. I'm not going to jump to the conclusion this means like he can't do the job anymore. Because I defended Nancy Pelosi when she was running for speaker around 80 years old, when people thought she should be dumped just because she's too old. And I said, that doesn't make any sense. If she can do the job better than anybody else, she should do it. So I'm not ageist by inclination. I've always felt
you've written a lot about that. That not only is it morally wrong, but also it's not politically efficacious. That people running on age stuff.
I don't leap to those conclusions. But again, having seen the debate that happened a week after that Juneteenth event, and I actually had just anecdotal conversations I've had with people. Again, I'm not a doctor, but some people who know a bit more about Parkinson's, for example, have told me that slack-jaw thing is a sign of Parkinson's. Doesn't mean he has Parkinson's.
Bill said that. Bill said that, not me. Analysis and satire. Analysis and satire.
Just means that. I mean, Sanjay Gupta at CNN wrote this himself just a couple days ago. There's enough that you're seeing that would suggest it's time for some additional testing.
I think that's the political problem that we're in right now, is that not only have you burnt your opportunity with this debate, which you asked for, you set the time, you set the moderators, you mocked Donald Trump that he was free on Wednesdays. This was your called shot. Not only did it not work, it backfired so spectacularly that we are at day 11 and counting of a time in which not only are you in a circular firing squad as a party, but you are not talking about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is absent, and he has been curiously been able to stop himself from wanting to make himself the center of this story.
And you're never going to be able to fully put all the attention on the other guy. There's always going to be attacks on you, no matter who it is, Biden or anybody. Kamala, Pritzker, Whitmer, Shapiro, Bashir, Newsom, especially Newsom. These guys are going to take it in the teeth. But I would think, again, this is a bit where I get a bit more speculative. I know you can't prove anything definitively.
Sure.
I think the country has had such anxiety about both Biden and Trump for so long, and now very heightened with Biden.
Yeah.
I think people had it with Biden before. My hope was that they would get over it.
Yeah.
With some good performances, but now we're very much in the opposite direction.
Deeper hole to dig yourself out of, and it wasn't a great situation before.
We have this heightened anxiety about the future. What is the future going to mean if either one of these guys is running the show? What's next year, the next 4 years going to look like? I don't know if you saw Kamala Harris at the Essence Fest over the weekend.
I saw the clips. I didn't see the full speech.
I mean, it's 25 minutes. It's worth watching the whole thing. Look, it's a friendly room, softball questions. I'm not saying it's like the end all be all of everything, but it's just a person that sounds competent with energy and drive and knowledge. I think if you put her in there, on day one, there's going to be a tonic effect initially. I'm not saying they're not going to go out there with hammer and tongue afterwards. Of course they are. But I think to some people, it's going to be like, finally, someone who just seems like they got their act together, who knows all the issues inside and out. They're not coming. They don't have to get up to speed. They don't have to cram. They can just be present. I'm watching her be president. If I were her, I would run like a quasi Rose Garden strategy. 5 days a week.
Yeah, I mean, look, she's meeting all the world leaders. Yeah. There's the big headline, first woman president. Let me ask you this though, because I very much believe and have believed that Joe Biden is, and as he said today on Morning Joe, he's not going to jump off the cliff. He's daring people to push him. I don't think that this is clean. I think that this is going to require, if Joe Biden is going to step aside, it's going to require there being a stated Democratic opposition. The question is whether or not that will materialize.
You mean a candidate?
Whether or not it's a candidate, it's people resigning from his cabinet. It is, Katzenberg saying no more money showing up. It is whatever, right?
Those other things I think may well happen.
We might.
Less likely.
But as a student of history, that anything close to a contested convention, and I would even include if there is a cleaner transition to Kamala, or at least a coalescing that Kamala is going to be the candidate, the fight for vice president is going to be something that, if it happens at the convention, will be loud. We're now extending the circular firing squad for another month and a half.
These are all arguments to me to do what I laid out. You do the resignation next week.
Of course. Let's imagine that doesn't happen, because I think it's unrealistic.
Well, depending on how Doug and Biden is, maybe next week is unrealistic. But I think resignation before the convention, for the Democratic convention, you don't have to say you're not allowed to contest at the convention. If you want to run against the incumbent president, Kamala Harris, good luck. See how it works for you.
But I think
chances
out.
are you're not going to get many serious contenders to do that. So number one, so you're gonna truncate circular firing squad, I would think, because people would be really excited to have.
But no, I'm saying for VP. I'm saying for VP, it's going to be a fight for VP, and you're going to have Oppo. You're going to have Oppo on people that are jockeying for that.
What is hard? I think President Harris would dictate who the VP is. I don't think it would be an open question on the floor. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could do it that way for fun, but
I think they're going to be people who push for it.
Maybe, but I think people would respect the president choosing her running mate the way it's always been done. What is hard about it, two things that are hard about it. One is that person would not become VP immediately, because that person would be confirmed by the House and Senate, and we all well know this House is not going to confirm whoever she picks.
Yeah.
So you have this period where you have a vacant VP, and I get this in my Twitter thread all the time. How dare you put Mike Johnson a heartbeat away? I'm like, I understand it's not great, but it's for a few months. I don't think she's going to be murdered. I don't think that anything's going to happen that's going to make him president. And the end of is what happens in November anyway. So it's a small period of risk. I think we can all get past it. And so two, not even Kamala could do as good a vetting job as I imagine they would like to do on a new VP candidate. You want, again, reason for Biden to do this decision as soon as possible, so you have some time to vet VP candidates and not get a surprise, thrown at you in the fall. But that is, it would have to be done on a compressed schedule, being where we are today. So all the more reason to make these decisions sooner rather than later, to give the next nominee, likely Kamala Harris, as much time as possible to do the transition and get their act together.
I don't believe that we're going to see a different nominee. I believe that Joe Biden is going to ride this out, and I believe that Joe Biden believes that he is only 2 to 3 weeks away from a virtual roll call that the DNC has already set up. And
that date's not set. One, that date's not set, and they don't need to do it, Because this has
They
been a little,
don't.
There's been a little confused.
They don't.
Because
They don't. Well, they initially.
They thought they had to because of Ohio, but Ohio fixed their law, and they don't have to.
Well, and also they didn't want a live mic situation because before, these are quaint old problems. They were worried about a live mic situation with the uncommitted delegates. That being said, I think he believes he can wait this out. And that all the bedwetters are going to come sheets in hand and pile back into the van, and they're going to ride to victory.
If that's the case, then we all just have to suck it up and get on board and bite our fingernails. Someone like me who said he should withdraw has to say, you know what? Joe Biden could be in a coma and I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. Joe Biden could be dead and I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. That is literally how I feel. I'm sure not a people feel that way, but that's what I would say in that circumstance. That if he literally can't do the job a week after the inauguration, then it's President Harris, and so what? She can do the job. That's what I would say. It's not my favorite argument to make, not because of hers, because you don't want to tell somebody that you're voting for a backup plan. But if he's gonna be that stubborn about it, then that's where we are, and so be it. Good luck to us all.
When he fell behind Kamala in the prediction markets for the Democratic nomination, which happened at a certain point last week, I said on Twitter, I think betting on Joe Biden's stubbornness is free money. Like, you just take the check. Like, of course. I just find it hard to believe, and we don't know what the state of the relationship is between the Biden family and Kamala Harris specifically. But I don't think it can be anybody but Kamala when black women are the beating heart of your coalition, and they are still there, despite the fact that there's been spillage in the rest of the coalition with young people, with Hispanic voters, with black men. Black women have stayed the course. To skip over Kamala Harris, I think, would be unthinkable.
It's not even just an identity politics argument, because it's not just saying not Kamala Harris. You're saying don't pick the person who is literally the most qualified person, the person who is literally supposed to be the person.
Yes. Yeah.
Who follows the president if he can't do the job. You have to argue that you should jump over that person for someone who is not a woman of color. I mean, it just feeds into every possible institutional racism, institutional sexism situation that we've all been in. And if Kamala was losing by 10 points in polls with Donald Trump, then you got a case. Yeah. That's not what polls currently say right now. CNN had her a little bit better than Biden. Data for Progress had them all about the same. So until you got a case that she's dead woman walking, there's not a strong argument for doing that, which is why I don't think most people would even try to do it.
Yeah. Aside from, I think Semaphore had last night somebody floating the idea of a blitz primary, which is
so dumb.
Which, like, all I had when I read that, I just imagined Susie Wiles of the Trump campaign, like, dialing into whatever donor call that was and saying, I think we should have a blitz primary, and then muting as they laugh. That's the dumbest thing that you could possibly do.
I mean, we're at this point where basically any schmo who like whips up a Google Doc memo is like literally having it passed around, having it be news. Yeah, which is not a great place for a party to be in. But I want to circle back to what you were saying before about Joe Biden, being defiant and determined.
Yes. By the way, calling into a morning talk show, bragging about his crowd sizes, as if we are back in 2016.
Yeah. Look, I think at the end of the day, Joe Biden is a party man. And we've seen a number of times that he does not respect the views of people who are aides as much as he has other elected officials, people who have been through the ringer, who knows what it takes to win an election. I think if we get to a place where his fellow electeds are telling him, Joe, look at this data. This is not going to work. You do not want to end your 54-year in life in politics this way. This would be terrible for you. The party is not behind you. You're leading a divided party. You will unify this party if you step down and hand it over to Kamala Harris. That's the kind of thing that's going to make him move off his defiance. If he's limited just to Hunter and a few other people, that maybe isn't going to get there. But I think he's not going to want to lead a divided party. He's not going to want to go out like that.
I don't know who that is. Well, we had Michael Cohen and Tom LoBianco on the show last week, and we speculated who that voice could be and wound up settling on like Bob Casey. If Bob Casey comes to him from Pennsylvania, senator from Pennsylvania, and says, I'm losing to Dave McCormick, the guy who couldn't beat Dr. Oz. Like, this is going to be a disaster. We need to have a conversation, maybe, but
I don't think it's one person. I think they want to avoid, the White House wants to avoid 25 senators showing up at the front door of the White House saying, "Let us in. We got a message to send to the president." They don't want that kind of spectacle. But if you have,
they seem to be picking it. You know, Warner's the one organizing it, right. And he went right after him on the Stephanopoulos thing, saying he was jealous that he wanted the nomination back in 20 and couldn't hack it.
And then the Warner people probably scotched their meetings. They didn't want it to leak, but it doesn't mean they're not still going to talk. I mean, people are going to talk. I can't. Clearly, there's a push on from the diehards saying you're a traitor if you abandon Biden. So that might make some people pause. I don't want to be the person seen as the traitor. But as often is the case, senators operate differently than House members. They're a little more insulated from Vox Populi.
Yep.
And so I would not be surprised if more than a dozen lock arms and say, look, we have this letter ready to go. We don't want to leak it publicly. We don't want to have to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue to talk to you personally. But if you're going to force us to do it, we're going to have to do it because these numbers are atrocious.
I wonder whether or not he buys it, any of the numbers. You know, the way he's talking, it's not, hey, we got a hole and we're going to make it up. And I think that the American people just need to understand the record and we need to get out of this circular firing squad so we can do that. My guess is he looks at negative numbers and says, yeah, my party's been kicking the living crap out of me. I've had editorials calling for me to step down. What do you think that's going to do to my numbers?
But it's all very circular. Like, that's the problem.
Yes!
Joe, you can't stop this without having literally, some doctor who is not your personal physician giving you the works and telling us that you're okay because you're not doing anything else to prove us otherwise. And until that happens, the circular firing squad is just going to continue. You can end it by stepping down and giving us a chance to unify around somebody else. I mean, it's not. You can't just look at Emerson College polling data, of course, but I'm sure Democrats have their own pollsters that they must have more faith in.
Well, there was a leaked memo after the debate that showed some dire numbers, including New Hampshire already being, he was down in New Hampshire before the debate. Now he was down more. There is some, I think you might have commented on it on X, that there is internal data that is showing New Mexico's in play, Virginia's in play, Minnesota's in play, the great Minnesota streak. Ronald Reagan could not take down Minnesota. Is Joe Biden going to be the first Democrat to lose it in 12 cycles? This would be historic. The question is, does he buy it?
I mean, it's got to come from people that he finds credible, from sources he finds credible, people he finds credible. I think sooner is better than later for all the reasons we said before.
Yeah.
But if the numbers are, I mean, again, I can't know what exactly all the internals are saying right now. We got these leak reports. I would think things will continue to leak.
Yeah.
And the more leaks, the more untenable the situation is. And Biden is not a dummy. He has political skills. He has to know that leading a sinking ship is not the way you win a re-election campaign.
In general, don't believe that. I mean, I think campaign mechanics are really important, but they're important when you got a lot of good fundamental things behind you. That being said, my biggest element of pessimism for Biden, beyond everything that we've just discussed, is that I don't believe his campaign can dig themselves out of this hole. I don't believe this campaign has the right messaging. I don't believe this campaign has the right perspective. And I don't think strategically that I would trust them. What have we seen from them that has given anybody any faith, up to and including pulling off what might be the most self-destructive move in American modern political race history with this debate?
I mean, I wasn't apoplectic at the quality of the campaign before the debate. I had my quibbles. Everyone always have their quibbles, the things I would do differently. But I wouldn't say it was a failing campaign. You could argue it because the numbers hadn't really moved all that much.
Because he's an incumbent that's behind for the first time since Al Gore in 2000, the first Democrat to be behind in July polling.
You can make the case. Again, and I think there are sharper, more surgically applied critiques of Trump that they could be using that they weren't using. I don't need to go through it all, but you can feel free to read my past Washington Monthly columns if you want to see my thoughts on that sort of thing. But what I've seen in the past 10 days is atrocious. And I don't want to be. I understand it's not so easy to have your game plan incinerate in real time and have a plan B ready to go the next day. That's obviously very difficult to do. But every strategic decision that's been made since the debate has been terrible. There is no good campaign strategy that's happened since then. They clearly don't know what to do right now. They don't know what the plan B is, and they're improvising in a very awkward and haphazard way.
Where do you think we are a week from now?
Eternal optimist that I am. I mean, I understand, we all think makes sense in our heads.
Yeah.
May not be what the higher ups actually do, or may not actually be what the best thing is, but I feel like what I laid out here is the rational course of action. The rational course of action is to do this decision as soon as possible, give time to quickly reunify the party, to end the uncertainty and anxiety, to give maximum time for transition and for VP vetting, and to make it harder for Republicans to get on their game. The rational thing to do is to do this next week. So that's what I would think. I like to think people behave rationally, and that's the rational thing to do. I just
so we have this moment, because this is, we have now ratcheted up. What was a very boring campaign has now gotten incredibly interesting. But just so we are all aware, your optimistic take is that the sitting Democratic president of the United States resigns.
Yes, that is correct. That is correct.
That's where we are right now on July 8th, 2024 with Bill Sher, Washington Monthly. And you've got, we've seen a huge uptick in our Patreon here. I would highly recommend, please follow Washington Monthly. Where can people do that?
WashingtonMonthly.com. We're on X at Monthly and Threads at WA Monthly. And I got a Patreon myself. You're welcome to kick a few bucks my way.
Go. Do it. Thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you. Take care.
And that'll wrap it up for us today. Politics is written and hosted by me, Justin Robert Young, for Dog and Pony Show Audio. A big thank you to Bill Sher. I wrote him immediately after his column dropped and asked him if he would be on the show. To his credit, he got back to me immediately. That dude has always been great to us. Please be great to him. Support any and all things Bill Sher. You want to give me some feedback, some theories on where you think the race is going? It is theyoungamerican@gmail.com. You can find and share clips from the show. Justin R. Young on TikTok, Instagram, Justin R. Young, Twitter, Justin R. Young. And then we've got our YouTube, our burgeoning YouTube community, which you can find at @ Politics. Search for my name, Justin Robert Young. Search for politics, and you're going to find it. I'm going to ask you guys in the YouTube comments exactly what I asked Bill Sher. Where are we in a week with Joe Biden? 7 days from now. Is he still the president? Is he still the nominee? Is he still in the same level of hot water that he is right now? Go ahead and write that as the Republican National Convention gets going. And of course, if you want to share the audio podcast with your friends, family, and clergy, it is letter P, letter X, number 3, podcast.com. It is go time, baby. Something is about to happen on this show that has never happened before. And that is, I am going to travel, being sponsored by nobody else, to cover the Republican National Convention. I'm going to walk in there with my own credential, and you guys put me there. You listening to me right now, you've been listening to me for however long. If you would like to support me monetarily while I am out there, it is paypal.me/payjury if you got money in there. If you have a little scratch on Venmo, it is Justin-Young-20. Cash App is PX3Cash, and you can send me anything you'd like in the mail. Any good luck talismans that you want to get to me before I go off to Milwaukee. P.O. Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. Again, that is Post Office Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. But many of you have been supporting this show and getting extra content from it. You can do that by going to takepoliticsseriously.com. At our $3 tier, you get 2 bonus episodes each and every week covering all the news that we miss on our free podcasting schedule. And let me tell you, I've been watching the numbers on how many of you guys are getting that content, and we are about to hit a super rad milestone that I am very excited about. Thank you. Thank you. If you want to get that content and get your name read at the end of the show, you can do so like these fine folks in the Titanic $10 tier. SingleTreeTravel.com, the newest. Fat Tony's PJs from New York. Devon the CFP. Gloria, my mom. That's my mom. Gray Zone, Peapaw, Jay, Sugar Brady, Marcus with a Q, DP4 Bongo, Sam, John, Niemeister, Edwin, Invoke Gloria Young for King of the New World Order, Edison, Jeremy, a dog named Checker, Sarah Jeannie, Matthew, Dr. G, Neil, his nerdiness, Charles, Audrey, Stoll Adler's Spot, Darren, Idris Arslanian, Blue Front and the Lenina, Berkeley, Stephen, Chad, Zombie Doc, Matt P, Chill, Adam, Chief Andy, Robert, Casey, Paul, Dustin, Brad, D-Laser, Nick Wood, just another pilot, middle-aged Mike, Utah, Jimmy Montana, the Jen, Alo, D, really, Craig, and Andrew. You want your name read on this show. You want to get the bonus content, especially at this time of year. Only one place to go. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. That's it for us today. We will be back to you this week. Evan Scrimshaw will be on the show. We're going to break down the polling. We will do our best. Maybe more guests. Maybe more news. We have no idea what is happening. The late breaking here is that Stephen Horsford of the Congressional Black Caucus and Pramila Jayapal of the Congressional Progressive Caucus have both backed Biden. And there we go. We go on and on. We can't understand how it lasts so long. It must have the superpowers. That's it for us today. Until next time, this is your old pal Justin Robert Young saying that some shows talk about politics, others talk about politics, and still more discuss politics. But this is the only show that dares discuss all three.